right, 5 minutes after 11 o'clock. Beautiful Friday morning. Thank you for tuning in. I love this job. How come I have some feedback here? I love my job. The part I don't like is because I also do the news in addition to the fun interviews we do. But the news, often when I come into work and I have to put together the news, is often a story about a shooting. And it's just so horrible. There was just the other day the Ohio incident, which was not a shooting, by the way. The only gun that was fired, I believe, the other day was from the police that took down the bad guy who did the damage he did with his car and with a butcher knife, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Tim Kaine is being dragged across the news because he said it was gun violence, and I guess he just didn't know the story or anything. But we live in a country where you have a right to be armed. It is your Second Amendment right. The Founding Fathers, I don't know if they specifically said guns, but you have a right to bear arms. That's what it says, right? Alan Gottlieb has been on, oh my gosh, you've seen him on Hannity and Combs. You've seen him on heard him on the Michael Reagan Show, on CNN Crossfire. 2020, the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour. He's all over the place, and it's such an honor to have him on our show. He's written a book called Right to Carry. I Carry a Gun. A Cop is Too Heavy, and he's got more credentials than I have time for, so let's just get into the subject. Alan Gottlieb, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm great. Great to be with you, Larry. Thank you.
Thank you. What an honor. Tell me why you wrote the book. It sounds like you are making a case that supports the Second Amendment.
Most definitely. I wrote the book because it goes through a little bit of the history of the battle to get the right to carry in most states around the country, and a lot of the false charges that people who don't support gun rights like to echo, like we'll have blood and carnage on our streets if we allow people to carry firearms for self-protection, which never really materializes. And it's a very interesting read, and it's a fun book.
One of the poster child videos to support the right to have a concealed arm, it comes from our town, and you might remember this story. It made the country. It was a little place here, an internet. What they used to call them, internet cafes. I don't know if they're still around or not. But a couple of kids came in there to rob the folks in there, and an old guy with a gun, he got up and chased them out and shot them. I don't know if they got hit with the bullets. I can't remember. But do you remember that video? And it really illustrated for all of us the difference that one person with a gun made. One good guy with a gun, I should say.
Yes, I do sort of remember that. And again, that stands in contrast to the laws and regulations we have that create these so-called gun-free zones, like was done at Ohio State and other places where these crazy criminals and terrorists go to apply their trade, so to speak. We were very lucky in the Ohio State case that there was a police officer assigned to an event there going on that happened to be there to be able to be a good guy with a gun and use his firearm to protect everyone else. But it shows the need why in these places why it's important to have people have a means for self-defense, and laws that basically strike the means for self-defense away so that you can't protect yourself don't serve any useful societal purpose.
I'm on your side, but I want to, for the sake of having a different side, if you don't mind, I'm going to step into the shoes of somebody who does not think exactly the way you and I are expressing it right now, and I know Robin is on the same page as us too, but I'm going to try to be the other person. So I have this other person I am right now. I understand the need for the gun, but I think if we were to put stronger legislation in place so that fewer people would be able to get them, maybe the bad guys wouldn't have the guns, and so the role I'm playing here is not the anti-gun guy or lady, but the person who says there's got to be a way to prohibit bad guys from getting guns. Now stepping back into my own shoes, I don't think there is a way. What do you think?
Well, I think we'd all like to find ways to stop the bad guy from getting a gun or a knife or even a car like it was used at Ohio State.
Right.
But the thing here is that to make the statement like you putting yourself in somebody else's shoes there who opposes us, that just make less people be able to have guns, isn't really the answer or the right thing to do. You don't deny people who are allowed to have a constitutional right their rights just to try and take rights away from somebody who shouldn't have those rights. So the trick is to come up with legislation that penalizes the bad guy, but doesn't take away the rights from the good guy. Or if you do that, you have no constitutional rights at all. And unfortunately, our opponents don't really care about that. What they're trying to do is take guns away from everybody,
Right.
and that's what their laws tend to do. If they be reasonable and responsible about trying to attack the misuse of any type of a firearm, or or a knife or automobile for that matter as well, they have our support. But that's not what they're all about.
Yeah. The scary part about the dialogue that says that we need to vet people to make sure they're mentally stable enough to have a gun, the scary part about that dialogue, it makes sense on the surface, I guess, but the scary part is who determines whether, like, they could hear me on the radio making an emotional statement and say, okay, this guy's not stable. He shouldn't be allowed to have a gun. That's the scary part. Not just radio announcers, but anybody who makes a statement, and anybody who speaks anything.
That is scary, but the worst part is in the legislation being proposed to do those kinds of things, there's no due process, so that if you're falsely accused and they take your rights away, there's no real way to go get those rights back.
Right.
And that's the real problem, because you would not tolerate that in any other area of protecting constitutional and civil rights. But, the gun prohibition lobby wants to push that when it comes to gun ownership.
The second part of your the subtitle is I carry a gun, a cop is too heavy. The second part of that, a cop is too heavy, I love what it says, because a lot of us feel like, I'll be okay, there's a policeman in my neighborhood. I'll be okay, we have a neighborhood security guy or something like that. But that's often after the fact. And I think that's why that second part of your subtitle is so good.
Thank you very much. It was done to illustrate that, as well as to gain attention, I guess. And I think it does that. But you're right in what you're saying. It's usually the police officer is only there after the incident report has been called in, and they come in and fill out an accident report, or a crime report. Like it or not, you're your own first line of defense when you're going to be attacked, and everybody knows that, and that's why people do overwhelmingly support the right to keep and bear arms.
One of the conversations happening here in Florida, and I'm guessing other states also, is whether teachers should be allowed to have guns. And I'll tell you, my own personal feeling is I have mixed feelings. I feel like a teacher never took a job where he or she wanted to be carrying a gun. So I feel like it's unfair to put them in that position. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's why I would say it should not be mandated that a teacher has to have a gun in the classroom, so to speak. But if you're licensed to carry and you're trained, I don't think you should be prohibited from having one either, because it's not only your life at stake, it's the life of your students that are at stake, in case somebody were to come in to do harm. So I can understand why a lot of teachers wouldn't want to, and I have no problem with that. Mm-hmm. But it's also, I have a large problem when you say nobody can do it.
Yeah. Do we have micro situations in this country, and you hear about these, and I don't know if they're true or not, like a city in Texas where it's mandated to have a gun and the crime rate is really low? Are those true stories, or is that just folklore that we keep hearing?
Well, let me use the classic one that's usually gets given, and that's Kennesaw, Georgia. In Kennesaw, where they mandated that everybody have a gun in their own home for self-protection. They did that in response to a gun ban in a city in Illinois that said you couldn't have one in your home. And basically, one, it's not really enforced, to begin with. But second of all, it's true that violent crime took a big nosedive after they passed that law in Kennesaw, Georgia. The only problem was, to be honest about it, all the neighboring towns around Kennesaw, Georgia, so the crime rate increased. So, criminals that read the headlines in the newspapers thought, it's more dangerous for me to rob a house in Kennesaw, so I'll rob it in a neighboring town. But unfortunately, it didn't get the criminals off the street, but it just diverted them to the next city.
Wow, I didn't know that at all. Alan, thank you for being on the air with us. As I mentioned in the opening, it's an honor to have you on. The book is called Right to Carry. The subtitle, I Carry a Gun, a Cop is Too Heavy. How do we get the book?
Amazon.com or any other fine bookstore.
Okay. And SAF.org, that's the Second Amendment Foundation, is that right?
Yeah, the website, SAF.org, and all our legal challenges and court victories and everything we're involved in is all listed on the website.
All right. Thank you, Alan. That was really a good interview, and I wish it could be longer. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Okay.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accidents. On this Friday, sunny to partly cloudy and not as warm as recent days with lower humidity. The high between 70 and 74, then mainly clear Friday night and cool, low 45 in the coldest inland spots to 50 on the coast. Saturday will be partly sunny with a high of 73 to 77. Sunday, some sunshine, high 76 to 80. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.